You have felt it, the room where one man carries more weight than his title earns, where his silence costs more than other men's words, where people calibrate their behavior to his attention before he has spoken. You have been in that room and understood without being told that something operating in that man does not operate in you, not yet. That gap is not personality, it is not genetics. It is a system of biological, psychological, and philosophical decisions made daily, at a level of precision most men never reach. The apex predator is a machine. Today we build the blueprint. Most men look at the apex predator, the man who dominates every room, outmaneuvers every competitor, operates on a frequency others cannot access. And they call it personality. They call it charisma. They call it a gift distributed unevenly at birth. A lottery result dressed up as a man, but that is a coping mechanism. A story told to keep the distance between where you are and where the predator operates, feeling like fate rather than engineering. The psychology of the apex predator is not a trait. It is not a mood. It is a biological, psychological, and philosophical system, built, not inherited. Today, we take that machine apart. Every predator in the animal kingdom shares one characteristic that has nothing to do with size, speed, or raw power. It has to do with attention. The lion does not chase every gazelle on the plain. It selects one target from the herd. It commits fully. It does not scatter its energy across 10 possibilities and hope that volume produces results. This is the first concept, singular prey focus. The predator's operating law that diffused attention produces 0 kills, while concentrated force applied to a single target produces compounding returns. The Pareto principle governs this mechanism with ruthless precision. 80% of outcomes are produced by 20% of actions, and the apex predator has engineered this ratio into a daily system. He does not attempt to optimize everything. He identifies the 20% with surgical clarity, commits to it entirely, and eliminates everything else without sentiment or ceremony. The mechanism is a weekly audit. Every Sunday, list every commitment, project, and recurring obligation currently occupying your time and attention. Then draw a line. Everything below the top 3 by measurable impact gets canceled, delegated, or permanently deferred. Not paused, removed. The predator's calendar contains white space where the average man carries anxiety. The average man diversifies his effort across 10 fronts to insulate himself from the exposure of genuine commitment. The predator concentrates his force on one until success becomes structurally inevitable. Concentrated force, however, requires something most men have been systematically conditioned to distrust. Which brings us to the second concept, cold blood. Cold blood is the psychological architecture of emotional regulation under pressure. The predator's capacity to operate his full cognitive function without interference from his own nervous system. This is not the suppression of emotion. That is the error most men make when they study dominance, and it costs them everything. Cold blood is the engineered separation between emotional signal and behavioral response. The delay that converts reaction into strategy. The biology is specific and documentable. The predator has trained the prefrontal cortex to override the amygdala's threat response in high-stakes moments, creating a processing interval that the reactive man does not possess. Research on locus of control maps this precisely. Men who operate from an internal locus respond to adversity with analysis. Men operating from an external locus respond with escalation and emotion. The predator's locus is entirely internal. Events are data. Provocations are information. The mechanism is a 10-second rule. In any high-stakes interaction, a negotiation, a confrontation, a moment designed to destabilize, you do not respond in the first 10 seconds. You observe. You breathe at a controlled rate. You allow the other man's move to complete fully before you commit to yours. 10 seconds is sufficient for the prefrontal cortex to reassert governance over the amygdala's initial response. It converts the reactive impulse into a calculated one. The average man responds to pressure with his nervous system. The predator responds with his intelligence. A regulated mind, however, requires a biological substrate. And this is where most frameworks for dominance fail to operate at full depth, which leads to the third concept, the hormonal architecture. The apex predator does not override his biology. He engineers it. Testosterone is not merely a reproductive hormone. It is the primary biochemical substrate of dominance, governing confidence calibration, risk tolerance, competitive aggression, and the capacity to sustain high-pressure states. The winner effect, documented across both animal and human populations, establishes the feedback loop precisely. Winning produces a measurable testosterone increase that makes subsequent winning statistically more probable. This is compounding, applied to biology. The predator understands this mechanism in reverse, engineers his early environments deliberately, selecting contests he can win before entering contests he cannot. He does not begin in the largest arena. He builds in the smallest winnable arena, captures the biochemical dividend of victory, and uses that dividend to compete at the next tier. The mechanism is direct. Identify one domain this week, physical, financial, competitive, social, where you have been avoiding entry. Enter the lowest stakes version of that competition currently available to you. Win it. The hormonal consequence of winning is not a side effect. It is fuel. It is the biological raw material the predator converts into sustained competitive capacity. The average man waits until he feels ready to compete. The predator competes to manufacture the readiness. Biochemical momentum produces forward motion, but forward motion has an internal enemy that most men refuse to name in clinical terms, which brings us to the fourth concept, the invisible war. The invisible war is the predator's ongoing conflict with his own resistance architecture, the internal counterforce that operates systematically inside every high-performing man and works to prevent the sustaining of dominance beyond what is already comfortable. Nietzsche mapped this territory precisely. Every drive toward expansion generates an equally powerful counter, drive toward preservation of what has already been won. The man who has achieved something now has something to lose, and the psychology of loss aversion operates at a biological level deeper than conscious intention. The predator does not negotiate with this force. He does not compromise with it, reframe it as wisdom, or grant it a seat at the decision table. He identifies it by name and treats it as an adversary with a specific operational signature. The Stoics called the correct response amor fati, the complete acceptance of what is required, applied here not to external circumstance but to internal resistance. When the pull toward comfort arrives at the exact moment action is demanded, that pull is not wisdom speaking. It is the war. The mechanism is a written resistance inventory. Document the exact thoughts, physical sensations, and recurring excuses that precede your most frequent avoidances. Date the entries. Track the pattern. A predator who cannot read his own retreat cannot interrupt it. The average man names his retreat prudence. The predator names it surrender and refuses it accordingly. Resistance identified loses its operational anonymity. But the final question is not how to defeat it in one engagement. The question is how to construct a system that defeats it every day for the rest of your life. Which brings us to the fifth concept, the predator's continuity. The predator's continuity is the architecture that separates the man who dominates for a season from the man who dominates for a lifetime. Game theory's repeated games principle provides the mechanism. In a single play game, defection from your own standard may appear rational. The cost of one compromise seems small. In a repeated game, one played tomorrow and the day after and across the following 40 years, the calculus inverts entirely. Every compromise is not an isolated event. It is a precedent, a new ceiling installed one level lower than the last. And ceilings compound downward exactly as standards compound upward. The predator does not evaluate today's standard on today's terms. He evaluates it on the terms of the man it will produce in a decade. The mechanism is a single, non-negotiable daily anchor. One behavior chosen with precision and executed regardless of mood, energy, external reward, or the presence of an audience. Not a habit stack. Not a morning routine assembled from other men's templates. One anchor. The behavior that performed without interruption for 10 years would make your current self unrecognizable to the man reading this sentence. The average man builds his discipline on motivation, which operates like weather, present some days, absent others, entirely outside his control. The predator builds on architecture. Architecture does not check the forecast. Drop the story that dominance is a genetic distribution. Some men born with it, others permanently without. Define your single highest leverage target and remove. Without negotiation, everything that does not directly serve it. Adopt cold blood as a daily practice. The 10-second interval between stimulus and response, trained until it becomes structural. Build the hormonal architecture from the bottom up. Compete where you can win before you enter arenas where winning is not yet certain. Start the invisible war on your terms, mapping your resistance patterns before they map you. Refuse to treat any single day's standard as optional. It is not a choice. It is a precedent. And precedents accumulate in only one direction. The predator was not delivered. He was constructed, one non-negotiable at a time, over years of deliberate architecture. Become the structure.